Welcome to your first dress rehearsal for Ecamm. This is the place where you are actually able to create your first show from start to finish, and nobody else is going to see it unless you want them to. Because what we're going to do here today is create a local copy of your show. So we have the flow. Remember, we talked about the flow of the show, start, middle, ending, right? And we're going to go through all of that, and we're going to see if there are any kind of technical difficulties along the way. There could be plenty. There could be none. Whatever the case may be, this is your opportunity to go, that's not looking right. Especially, I've noticed things like screen sharing or instances where you find that you thought you had something set up correctly, especially when it comes to extra hardware. You're going to find yourself in a situation where maybe it's not set up exactly like you had hoped. And so a real Ecamm user, a seasoned veteran, if you will, would be able to nip it in the bud in real time. But for somebody who's just getting started with Ecamm, you probably want to have yourself prepared as much as possible, because it is really easy to get rattled if something's not working the way that it's expected to. So this is your dress rehearsal. You're going to go, again, start to finish, and we're going to look at all the technical implications that go into it. We're not using any fancy hardware for this, except for me recording on my microphone and everything. We're not recording or we're not using any fancy hardware for this dress rehearsal. We're using Ecamm out of the box, just as you would receive it if you were, starting Ecamm for the first time. Okay. So let's go ahead and get rolling with this, because the dress rehearsal is the fun part. And it's a way to get those butterflies out of your stomach before you actually go live. So let's do it. Okay, so we are ready to record, I think. You think? You ready? Okay, cool. Let's get going. So before we actually do anything, of course, there's a little bit of a checklist. And I like to, think of the fact that a checklist is something that you do no matter what. I don't care how many times you've done something. Sure, you can maybe cut corners. Sometimes you can maybe do things a little bit differently, and so that checklist doesn't necessarily apply. Or maybe you've discovered a new way. But I think it's always important to keep the checklist updated. For instance, when I was learning how to fly, I had a checklist. And even though I had gone around the airplane, done the pre-flight checklist dozens and dozens of times before I even got my license, I still needed that checklist, because there's always that one little thing. Interesting story, and then we'll get to the meat of this. One day, my instructor and I were trying to actually go off and do some practicing. And it was a cold day, I remember, and I was doing the pre-flight of the plane. And what happens is, after about the second or third lesson, the instructor just says, here's a checklist, go do it. And I'll meet you out at the airplane in about 10, 15 minutes. Okay, cool. So I do the checklist almost, and we get into the plane, start the engine. It's good idle power, even though it's cold outside. The wind's coming in, and it's keeping the engine pretty cool. And I start to give it gas to get off the flight line and get onto the taxiway. Plane's not moving. We look over at the wings, and we look down at the wheels, and all the tie downs on the wings and the wheels were gone. I mean, I took them off just like I was supposed to. And then what happened was a lineman, a guy who works for the airport, came up to the plane, knocked on my instructor's side and says, "Your back tie down isn't untied." I kid you not. And he just looked at me with just this utter disgust. And I deserved it. I mean, to be honest, I was in a hurry. It was cold. And I forget the one piece that's going to allow us to go forward. And thank God I did, because had I missed anything else, we went through the checklist a second time, just making sure I didn't miss anything. And, well, I never made that mistake again, but I still remember that day as if it happened yesterday, and that was a long time ago. So, all right, anyway, so checklists are important. That's my whole point. And even when you're doing video, when life and death is not really necessarily an issue, you still want to make sure that you're taking care of all the little things, even things that you make assumptions about. So I've got a checklist here, and I want to take you through it. Okay, that was actually pretty funny. Okay, so a recording checklist. Now, this is a little bit different from Go Live checklist, but it's still applicable in pretty much both cases. There are some slight differences here and there, and there's yet another checklist that is for when you're doing guest interviews that you need to make sure that you're definitely out of anything else. The guest interview checklist is going to be really important, because in almost all cases you'll be live, or because you're remote, you can't troubleshoot as easily when you're in the middle of things. Turn on Do Not Disturb. This is a big one. So, and actually, now that I think about it, let me do that right now, because I don't believe I turned that off. Okay, so you in the upper right-hand corner of your Mac, you can set yourself to Do Not Disturb. Mute most things. And by muting that, you won't get any kind of funky dings or things like that when you're doing your presentation or you're doing your recording, because nothing's worse than getting right to the end. It's one thing when you get a notification on your Mac, and it is when you're not talking, so you can edit that quick little ding out. But it's another thing when you're talking and the ding comes in, and then you're like, I gotta kind of back up and restart, and then edit the whole thing out. So there's nothing worse than that. So turn on Do Not Disturb. Unmute your microphone. That should go without saying, but I have listened to or watched multiple both live and pre-recorded shows, and sometimes they leave them when they're pre-recorded. The mute is on, and so, for instance, I've got my slider here, my board, and I can't hear audio on my Mac when my microphone is on. And so I tend to leave my microphone on mute so I can hear the audio from the Mac. Now, if I press, and what'll happen is your audience will start hollering at you, hey, I can't hear you if you're in live. And what's absolute worse, and trust me, this has happened to the best of us, what's the absolute worst thing is when you have this long 30, 45 hour long recording session, and you go to play back the file and there's no audio because you forgot to turn it on. So that should be number 2 on your list. Unmute your microphone. The cloud services thing, cloud services means that there's stuff going on in the background. And one of the biggest ones is when you're dealing with file downloads and uploads, synchronization between a file server like a Dropbox or Google Drive or something like that. And you inevitably start using up bandwidth on your Mac, and not only in the action of doing that, but then of course your internet. So if you're going live, it's even worse, right? So you've got the processing power is being utilized by another process, and then your internet's being utilized by a file service, and both of those two can shut you down real quick unless you have like a super Mac. So I would advise just pausing all synchronization and any other cloud services. Check your sound levels. Oftentimes people will complain that your sound levels are too low, or your sound levels are too high. Obviously, if it's too high, the audio will sound distorted. And in most cases, Ecamm will give you a level meter that's pegging close to or in the red. Not a good thing. So you want to adjust those levels down. So that's definitely something that you have to take into consideration, is getting those levels right and making sure you stay within the green, only bumping up into the yellow when maybe you talk a little bit more loudly. Check your camera inputs. Okay, so clearly I've checked my inputs because I've got this camera here. I've got another camera off to my right, and I've also got the iPhone camera. I've got 3 separate cameras in here, and they're all going in to this lesson. And so I want to make sure that all these are checked. Now, fortunately for our lesson today, you're not worried about doing anything with anything other than one camera. So just make sure the camera is working. And trust me, I've come across Camo works great for immediately connecting to your Mac and then displaying that inside Ecamm. But if your Mac does have a built-in HD camera, you got to make sure that sucker's off and you're not using that as your source, because that'll look awful. And then run through your scenes. So we've done this a couple of times already. Feel free to do this. You know, you can pause right here and just run through your scenes, your intro, and your main, and then your outro. So what I'm going to do is talk about what I talked about when I set up the first scene about the sunglasses, the Ray-Ban aviators that I have. And so my whole presentation is going to be based around that. Yeah, 3-5 minutes. You get to watch me fumble through my presentation on aviators for the first time. And so make sure that that all works. And then finally, your sound levels are working through each scene. And then your last scene, when you click end recording, that's what's up. And then that'll fade to black and you're good to go. Check your recording destination. That's a big one. You want to make sure that your recording destination is in the right spot. Now, I often recommend to people who are just getting rolling with Ecamm, if you have external hard drives, don't use those just yet. Ultimately, that's what you can do. As a matter of fact, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm recording to an external SSD because my little Mac Mini only has a half terabyte of storage on it. And these files, the video files, take up a lot of storage space. But for the purposes of this class, just record internally to your computer's hard drive, whatever it may be. If it's a modern Mac, it's going to be an SSD anyway. So you should be fine there. Clean your cone of cleanliness. Okay, so there's a bunch of ways to do this. But first of all, the cone of cleanliness exists from the origin of the lens outward. Now, right now, I'm on a 16 millimeter lens. I've got it tuned in with the aperture so that I have a nice blurry background. I look good. I look good on camera right now, and everything behind me is kind of blurry. But I noticed before I got rolling, back down here where the chair area was, my trash can was there, and I failed to empty that before I started my recording. So it's now sitting underneath the desk. It is outside the cone of cleanliness, and eventually I'll dump the trash. But anything else, water bottles, parts, cables, anything like that you don't want to be part of your show, your presentation, get them out of your cone of cleanliness. The best way to do it is you get out of frame, you see what the camera can see, and then if everything's copacetic, you can go on. If there's some items that are maybe not supposed to be there, get them out of the way. You could be, literally just right outside the frame. It doesn't matter. I've got so much going on outside of this frame as it is that I would be, if you were to see just a little bit off to the left or a little bit off to the right, you might see some other stuff that I don't want you to see. Also, with the blurred background, this is called, depends on who you talk to. If you talk to a Japanese person, it's called bokeh. And really it is the effect of the range at which the camera can focus given the amount of light that you're letting in. So on a relatively short distance with a low aperture setting, like I'm at 1.4 right now, and don't worry, you don't need to know all this stuff, but if you want to get that nice blurry background, you can't use your iPhone and you can't use like your little pocket cameras. Like I've got one that I've been using for a lot of these lessons. It works great, and it's a 4K camera. So is the iPhone, but I'm not going to get that blurry background. That's just not something that's inherent in the lens configuration of those cameras. So that I use, though, as a way to kind of mask out the way that the camera focuses. If it'll eventually focus on the background if I move the mic out of frame and I get out of frame completely, and you'll be able to see all the details back there, but you don't need to, and I don't want you to, so that's why I've got it kind of blurry. Also notice that my microphone, see the microphone even right here, I mean, it is literally 6 inches from my mouth, but this shock mount holder is slightly out of focus. Now, if I move it closer to me, you can see it gets a little bit more in focus. Can you read the side? Yeah, kind of, but not really. So this is my focal range right here. It's pretty darn close. Then, after you got your cone of cleanliness all cleaned up, then when you are about to go recording, make sure you're recording. This is another one that's almost egregious as when you forgot to take your mic off of mute. And the reason for that is if you're using external devices to start and stop and pause your recordings, those devices sometimes don't register fast enough with Ecamm. And as a result, you're going to find yourself with you thought you were recording, your mute's off, you're talking away, you see the sound levels and everything. And then you look over and it says, there's a little blue button in the center that says record. Well, it doesn't say record, but it's basically record. So there should be a question mark after that, but it's the record button. If you see that, you're not recording. And you know you're recording because in the the upper center area of the Ecamm window, you'll see a recording red bar, slightly translucent, with the word recording on it. Also your audio levels, and then also how much time you've been recording. That's all up there for you to see. And you'll see that when we do the presentation on my laptop. So that is essentially, that is it. I think that now is the best time to get into the laptop and start working on getting everything set up so that we can do our first recording. And then at the very end of this lesson, we will go through the process of uploading it to YouTube, getting your link, and then the file won't be listed as something that people can see on your test YouTube site, but it's something that you have the link to, and by being unlisted, the file does exist on YouTube. It's just not available. You won't see it in your list of thumbnails for your channel, which is what you want right now. You want to make sure that you're got everything going, and we're just uploading. We're not streaming to YouTube, not yet. All right, so I'm gonna switch over to my other camera and we'll do that. Okay, so we're back in the computer, back where we belong, and now let's get rolling on what it is going to take to get this presentation recorded. So going back to the checklist here, we will put ourselves in do not disturb mode. And so my focus, if I click here, I've set my focus right here, do not disturb. I'm just going to say for 1 hour, because if I'm not done in an hour, you guys are going to kill me. So let's go ahead and say do not disturb for an hour. Make sure your microphone levels, I've got mine muted right now, but you can see there's my microphone level. And let's see. So I got microphone level on, and so that's not muted. That's a good thing. Let's check our scene. So here's our intro. Okay. And that's kind of low. Okay, that looks good. Now we'll go to main, and I'm going to trigger my lower thirds. There it is. Remember, we created that in the last lesson. Still think it looks great. If you got it looking like that, great job. If you stole mine and made it your own, that's fine too, but you really should pull that one apart. Okay, and so our music's working, and then outro. There it is. Okay, so all my scenes are working. I'm gonna mute this for the moment. Okay, there we go. Yeah. All right, so I muted that. So you can see here, I've got up at the top of the screen. Well, yeah, let's check our destination. Make sure we're setting it up correctly. Go into preferences. Command comma will get you there, and go to recording. And then change your recording folder. And let's see, where am I recording to? I'm going to record to our class folder here. So I'll choose that. And also, what do I want to record at? If you go to stream, you can say 2160, whatever. That's 4K, but whatever you want to record it at, you can. I think for the sake of my laptop's sanity, my sanity, I'm just going to go with 1080. Now, by adjusting it to 1080, Ecamm handles all the scaling on the back end. So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. That's actually one of the really nice features. You don't have to size and resize assets. It handles all that on the back end. So normally what I do is I design for a 4K stream, even if I'm not going out to 4K, because, and 4K is 3820 by 2160, 3840 by 2160. I think that's what it is. Yeah, you want to, you go for the highest, and then it'll scale down quite nicely. Now, obviously, you don't want to go too big, because then you'll start to get stipple patterns as it scales down, and the anti-aliasing looks bad on it and stuff. So try and design for 4K. And if you're never going to go to 4K, design for whatever resolution you want to go to. I would just advise 4K. If you're going to Zoom and you don't have the professional plan where you can go above 720p, then I would at least design for 1080p, because if you do unlock 1080 down the road, or you go to another conferencing platform that does support 1080, I would go for that just because it looks better. All right. And let's see. So we got that set up 30 frames a second. So we're all good there. Remember, command comma will get you preferences, and you close it. Okay. And let's see, what else do we need to do? I know. We need to check our cone of cleanliness. So best way to do this is go back to your main scene like this, right? So do you see anything in the shot that may be not what you want people to see? Again, you see the difference between the two screens? Like, look at my shot in the upper left-hand corner of the screen right now, and you can see, well, that way, you can see that there's that blurry background. However, on the main screen here, I'm using my iPhone, and it's hardly any blur, and that's because I don't have the lens, the same lens. You can get lenses for the iPhone, but frankly, it's kind of like square peg, round hole type thing. You're best off just getting a nice camera, and I can give some recommendations for cameras that are, say, sub $600, sub $700 that produce great imagery, do 4K, and just, you know, have HDMI and all that other fun stuff. But once you start getting into these types of cameras, you're going to find that it's got a little bit of a rabbit's hole in terms of cost. So just be prepared for what could happen. All right. So now let's go over and, okay, we checked our cone of cleanliness. Of course, I've got my game changer. All right. See, it says game changer on here. See that? This is actually an older Ecamm insulated cup. I've been using this forever. Always make sure to take a sip of water and let that process in your throat before you start talking. Of course, you can always drink water off camera, or you can drink on camera. I don't know, whatever you want to do, whatever you feel the most comfortable with and what your audience is willing to accept. But inevitably, when you're talking and talking and talking, your mouth will dry up. And so having that water available quickly, even if it's off screen, that's fine. I just like having mine away from my hands because I tend to do this. And as you guys have seen in multiple lessons, I've whacked this microphone even though I need it. You've probably heard a little boom, and that's me just, I don't even have any Italian in me. I don't know where it's coming from, but whatever the case, we want to make sure that your cone of cleanliness is fine. And I think we've got our sound levels. Check on the sound levels. We've got camera inputs. That's obviously working. You should only have one. Again, if you are not having any kind of feed inside your screen, go to Camo. You just click on it in the menu bar at the top, and then the device, and make sure it's set to your iPhone. And just so you know, I mean, right now it's a little bit hard to see on my screens right now, but I do have here. I'll do this because you got me in other shots. You see this device here, and I know I showed it in prior lessons, but this is a magnetic. It's a MagSafe adapter that obviously sticks to your iPhone. And then the nice thing about this is that it holds the iPhone in place. The only downside with this particular model, and they do make one that's lighter, is the weight of it. So as you can see here on top of my laptop, I've got a light, and so the laptop and the light and the camera all are adding weight to the screen, and inevitably the screen will want to go back. As a matter of fact, I think it's resting against my boom. Yeah, so if I move this boom, you can see. So you got to be careful about this stuff. Sometimes it's better to put the iPhone on like a little tripod with a camera, like a little squeeze cup, or not cup, but bracket on it, and then put that either right behind your monitor so it's not touching the screen, or put it off to the side, kind of like what I have with this one. Depends on what the style presentation you want is. All right. Okay, so we've got everything checked out. Now we're going to start recording. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go into the intro scene, and then we're going to hit the record button and start recording. Okay? And then I'll go through my little thing, and I will, for the sake of time and your sanity, I'll start with my introduction to these glasses, and then make sure they're close by, and then I'll cut that, and then I'll go right over to the ending. And you don't need to sit through me talking. All right, so here we go. So this is how it works. You see the record button right here, lower center on your Ecamm window. That's going to be recording. Now, if it says something other than record, you want to make sure that it is, let me make sure that this is also hide temporarily. Okay. You want to make sure that if it says something else like go live, these settings right here, you can see stream, record. We don't want to, we don't want to stream. Okay. But if I turn that on, you'll see what happens. Now it says new, and that's going to be the next lesson where we talk about streaming. So in this case, we're just going to turn off stream. It'll go to the record button. You can hit record. You can also go to the Ecamm Live tab and then say begin recording, or Command G, whatever your preference is. So I will just go ahead and go back to my intro screen. And I have my audio playing, so let me turn that off. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and click record, and then watch where my mouse goes when I step through the scenes. Okay, so I'm recording on another Mac right now, so that's not going to impact this stream. But see, notice I turn mute on. This is generally a good thing to do on your intro screen so people don't hear you while you're getting ready for your show. So the mute is remembered for that scene, so the mute settings. So if I go to the next scene, it should be active again. But I thought I'd just mention that. And we don't need interview mode. So we'll leave that, close that. Okay, so I'm going to start my show, and you'll see what happens. Well, hey there. I am here to talk to you today about something that I'm excited about. Matter of fact, I'm so excited about it, I've been using it for about 3 decades. And when I say it, what I mean is these sunglasses from Ray-Ban. These are called the Aviators. And the Aviators are some of the things that, when you use in life, you just continue to use them. Yeah. I use Aviators. My name is Jeremy Hubble. I'm a pilot. I'm also an Ecamm instructor, and I just wanted to introduce you to these timeless designs. I think that they're a great product. Ray-Ban continues to make great aviators, and I think I've gone through my fair share of them. But they're fun, and obviously they look stylish. Now, I want to say that our current president probably was not an aviator, but he likes to wear these. Whatever the case. But you can see here, well, first of all, you can't see my eyes, which is great. But if you are a pilot, what I do recommend is getting the non-polarized versions of these. And the reason why I say that is that the polarized versions, well, if you're using a cockpit with the glass display, the ones that have the LCD screens, those are going to be somewhat muted. Matter of fact, I was wearing these and I was looking at some screen just the other day. It wasn't even in the cockpit, and I couldn't read it. I had to pull my glasses off to be able to read it because the polarization actually clashes with the film that's on top of these LCD screens. So get the non-polarized version. Thank God Ray-Ban still makes those. It seems like everything's polarized these days. And us poor pilots, the ones that they created these aviators for, are left with what almost seems like an afterthought of a camera. I'm looking into the camera. What almost looks like an afterthought of the glasses. And so we need these for sure. So I think that, you can find these at Sunglass Hut. You can find them online. You do have to be careful, though. One of the things that I've found is that there's a lot of counterfeiters out there, especially on a design like this, because it's been around for so long, and people copy it because they know they're going to make money off of it. And so you have to be really careful that you're buying a genuine Ray-Ban product for two reasons. First of all, even if you get a counterfeit, it may work just like the regular aviators do. You may not even know the difference. But in the event, if you think you're buying a Ray-Ban product, and in the event something does happen and you try and send it to Ray-Ban to have them fix it, they'll be like, this is a counterfeit. We don't service these products. And then you're stuck. Then you have to buy a new set. And inevitably, you're having to buy Ray-Bans anyway. So just get them the first time around. These go anywhere from $80-$90 up to, I've seen them as high as $180. I think that's ridiculous. You don't need to pay this much for some metal and some lenses, but they do look good. And as for us pilots, when we need to be able to distinguish different things going on up in the air, oncoming aircraft, being able to make out clouds that are up and, it's kind of a hazy day, that kind of stuff. These Ray-Bans, and they come in a cool case, they work wonders for that. So that's it. I just wanted to introduce you to the Ray-Bans. I have an affiliate link inside the description here. If you click that link, it'll take you right to an authorized reseller for Ray-Ban products, and you can purchase the product there. And it kind of helps the channel a little bit. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's no extra cost to you, but it does help us, and I'd be much appreciative if you were able to buy from that link. So until next time, enjoy your glasses, and I will see you around. Bye. Okay, so you saw how that worked. It was, quite simple. It was, you talk. I probably could have been, I literally came up with that on the fly. So it was, and I can tell, but it's now recorded and it's up. It's going to be, I'm going to stop the recording in a second here. And then let's go ahead and we'll just do that. You can go to the Ecamm live button here, say end recording, and it'll automatically fade out. Now the music will keep playing, so you can just mute it or whatever. But now if I go to my folder here and go to my class, let's see, desktop class, so you can see Ecamm live recording. So if I double click that, here's my file. Now I've got it on mute right now, but here, let's jump ahead. For me is sunglasses from Ray-Ban. These are called the Aviators. And the Aviators are similar to the things that, when you use in life, you just continue to use them. Yeah, I use Aviators. My name is Jeremy Hubble. I'm a pilot. I'm also an Ecamm instructor. And I just wanted to introduce you to these timeless designs. I think that they're a great product. So you see how this works. Okay, so it's playing music right now because that's from Ecamm. But I didn't have any music playing during that scene. So in any case, you can see I now have a QuickTime movie. Let's see. And this was recorded. I believe I recorded this at 4K, if I remember correctly. Yep. So this is, let's see. No, this is actually 1920. So this is 1080p. That's why it plays so quickly on this laptop. And it's 452 megabytes for what was, let's see, 6 minutes of video. So you get a sense there how long it would take to actually record that video. So how did yours turn out? You want to try it again? You can do that. All right, pause it right here. Go back. And you step through the scenes using the little scenes panel here. Yes, there are ways to do this more easily, and again, go back to the long division, short division method. There are ways to do this more easily, more efficiently, and not have you fumble all over the place. But I just wanted you to navigate the interface so you know what you're dealing with. And then we can talk about the other techniques for getting even better results and looks a little bit less distracting. For instance, I had to trigger my lower third. I didn't want to do that. I wanted that to play automatically when I went into that scene. So I played it off as I was doing my intro, and then I went to who I am, and then I went off after that. So I kind of ad-libbed a little bit. So if you didn't get it right the first time, that's okay. You can take as many takes as you want. Just pause this video and then come back. And the next step is we're going to go on to YouTube and upload this video so that you can see how it looks on YouTube when you stream it in your web browser. Okay, so I'm assuming now at this point you are happy with the results, happy-ish even. That's fine. Remember, this is something that unless you want to share it with people, you don't have to, and you can trash it when you want. So what we're going to do now is go into YouTube and then upload the video. And then we're also going to add a thumbnail. And I'll show you how to do that using the techniques that we've already done in this lesson. So go to your web browser. In my case, I'm going to go to Safari, and you go to studio.youtube.com. All right, that is what you want to use for this particular way to upload. Make sure you're logged in, and in this case, you just click on the upper right-hand corner of the YouTube interface and make sure that you're logged in. So you remember we created the Bootcamp test window. I'm sorry, the account. We created the Bootcamp test account. And so I am logged in correctly, and also correctly, I have no videos. I have no subscribers. I have got nothing, and that's fine. We're just getting started. So upload videos. So there's two ways to do this. You can click on upload and pick your file from the classroom or class folder if you created that, or you can, wherever you stored your file, you can just grab it from there. Or you can click create and go to upload videos. And here I can just go back into my Finder. I love dragging and dropping. For me, this is the best way. So I'm just going to drag that file in. And so then YouTube's going to go through the process of uploading that file for me. Now, the title of the file is recorded as the file name itself. So I'm going to change that because titles are important to YouTube's algorithm, to the audience. So you want to give it something that is memorable. So I'm just going to say our aviator still cool. And you want something that's a little bit provocative. You don't, I'm not going to, you want to make sure that whatever you use as the title, it's not a bait and switch, right? You want to make sure that you're giving the audience what they expect. And then here for a description, you have to enter a description. So I'm just going to say, I still wear aviators after 30 years of being a pilot and a tech nerd. Have you ever used them? What do I say? Are they cool or dated? What's my take? What's my take? Listen in and find out. Okay, so again, you want some kind of description in there that's going to pique people's interest, right? Next thing that's pretty important is the thumbnail. So right now, as it's processing the file, it's uploading and it's telling me it's going to take 36 minutes. Fortunately, you won't have to wait 36 minutes because I got the pause button on my record here. I will have to wait 36 minutes for this thing to upload, which is utter. I don't know why YouTube does this to small channels, but they do. They throttle not only, well, I know why they do it. If you've followed YouTube at all, there's a guy named Mr. Beast. He is the #1 YouTuber out there. He's got millions of subscribers. He's got hundreds of thousands of dollars in budgets for each episode. I don't know how he does it, but he's got a lot going on. And if you aspire to be the next Mr. Beast, good on you. But I don't even think that just looks like a lot of work to me. And now he's got a whole crew and everything. So remember the two photos that we took. We're going to do a thumbnail now. Remember the two photos that we took, the start and the end, right? So I've got this one here. That's my ending. And then my start is this one. So normally what you would do is add some text to this. And this is where applications like Keynote could come in handy, because you could overlay text and then just save that image, and the text can be, drop shadows. You can do what appears to be faux reflections. You can do that stuff inside Keynote. Of course, you can use Photoshop, Adobe Elements. There's another product that's out there called Canva. All those products allow you to add text to your thumbnails. I would suggest doing research on thumbnails before you go too far, because you probably want to develop a brand and a style if you're going to go, full on with creating a YouTube channel and then publishing content all the time. So, but I'm going to select this first one that I took, and I'm going to drag that in as upload thumbnail. Now, what will happen, file's bigger than 2 megabytes. Uh-oh. So how do you fix that? Simple. What you do is you go into preview. So if I double click this, it'll pull it up in the Mac OS preview, right? And then I can go to tools, adjust size. And right now it's 3840 by 2160. So I'm just going to do 1920 by 1080. And now it's gone down to 2.9 megabytes. Still not enough. It needs to go smaller than that. So we're going to do file and then export. Right? And instead of a PNG with alpha, we're going to do a JPEG. And you see that now it goes down to 455K. So we'll save that. And this is just preview built into Mac OS, so you can resize images all you want. So now I've got this file just like I want it. And now I can drag it in. Oh, wait, where did it save it to? Hang on a second. So it helps to pay attention where you're saving your file. Let's file, export. Where did it go? Oh, it went to my iCloud account. Okay, class. So we're going to export. I'm going to go to the class folder. I'm going to leave it, I'm going to call this thumbnail, just so I have something to refer to. JPEG 455K, way smaller than the 8.9 megabytes that it was before, and YouTube will gladly accept this. So now if I go see thumbnail, drag it in, and boom, that is now my thumbnail. Now, YouTube will also have other thumbnails that it generates that you can use, but I'm going to go with this one. And playlist, well, we don't have any playlists set up, so all this other stuff we'll leave alone. The only thing we need to do now, we'll go to next. It's not made for kids. That is definitely... okay, so a little point of clarity here. Made for kids, not made for kids. Even if kids can watch it, did you expressly make it for children? In which case, yes, you made for kids. Now, what does that do? It imposes some restrictions as far as comments, the ability for your audience to interact with each other outside of your channel, all that stuff. It makes it safer for children to be able to view the video without feeling like it's a place where predators might hang out. So YouTube's pretty good about that stuff, so I would leave it. And certainly anything related to alcohol, drugs, any of that stuff. If first you got to make sure you're not violating any kind of community guidelines that YouTube may have in place, but then you also want to make sure that if you do that, that it's definitely not made for kids. And then age restrictions, restrict it to viewers, and you can. So here's the funny part here. You can say, do I want to restrict it? And I can say restrict it to viewers over 18, or I don't want to restrict it to viewers over 18. So how does that jive if it says, no, it's not made for kids, but allow them to watch it? What it means is that when parents are setting up parental controls inside their YouTube account for their children, they may set like, okay, my kids can only... They can watch kid-related content, but the minimum setting or the maximum setting that the minimum setting that the publisher has recommended is 18 years and then over. So we're going to say at this point, we're going to say, no, we're not going to restrict it because nobody's going to see it anyway. And there's a lot more to YouTube uploads. We're not going to get into that in this class, but there's a lot more under the Show More section. So I'll go ahead and click Next. And we'll leave the video elements alone right now. Click Next. And it'll do a copyright check. Now, YouTube does have some ways to automate copyright infringement checks, meaning it'll analyze the sound. If there's any kind of movie clips in there that it might find that the copyright holders would either have historically in the past claimed copyrights to, or are so egregious that they just simply won't allow it, they'll force you to remove it before you can actually publish the content. But we don't have that. It's just us. So then we'll go ahead and click Next. And now here is where we set our visibility. So we're going to set it to unlisted. And now that it's unlisted, that means that it won't be on my page, but I still have a link right here. You see that link? It's right here, video link. And if you click the little pages next to it, that'll copy the link to the clipboard so you can use that. And if you wanted to make it public, you certainly could. I would advise against it, especially if you've got lots of snafus or bloopers or stuff like that. Just, it's a test channel, but, burner channel, as it were. But, I mean, it's up to you. I'll leave it up to you, but I'm leaving mine set to unlisted. If you want me, this is something I'll do for you, even in the beginner's course, and this is something free. I'm not going to charge for it. If you send me your link from your video, if you send that to me, I will take a look at it. And if you have any questions or concerns or audio levels or any of that stuff, I can potentially get you through some hiccups that you may be experiencing. So if you just send it to support@basecamp.pro, basecamp.pro, two M's, you will, I'll take a look at it. I'll be more than happy to take a look at it for you. Just a few minutes out of my time to do that. And I'd be more than happy to give you some feedback on what I see and what potentially you could do to improve. Or if you're having any kind of technical difficulties, this is the time to figure that out. Because in the next episode, the next lesson, let me check my list here. My God, are we really on 10? Yeah, we're going to be going to 10. Right on. So the next one's going to be going live. Now, hopefully you did in the very first lesson, you did what we were supposed to do, and that is set up YouTube to be live. And the reason why I say hopefully is because if you haven't done that, you're going to need to take a 24-hour break before you can do the next lesson, lesson 10. And going live means we're going to schedule it from Ecamm. We're going to also go live immediately. We're going to look at all the things that make it possible to do it directly from Ecamm. All right. I'm going to click save. And at this point, it'll give me a window saying the video is processing. And oh, it's actually published. So it's uploaded now at this point. So one of the things you can do, if it has been uploaded, they said 36 minutes, but they were obviously wrong. If you go to your content link or on the left-hand side, see, I just actually dragged my window out. You see what happens is YouTube, this is their responsive desktop for their studio. They'll eliminate words, and then you have to memorize icons, more icons. Click on content, and you'll see your video here. It'll show you the details. It'll show you visibility set to unlisted, which you can quickly change here. When it was uploaded, if there are any restrictions, how many people have viewed it, are there any comments, likes versus dislikes. So if you have 100% likes, that means it's all likes, but people can still hit the dislike button, which I think is lame, but whatever. And then you can click into this and edit the changes. So that's up and running. So now I'm ready to go live. And you can always test that by going to the create menu and saying go live. So the next lesson we do, it's going to be all about streaming to your YouTube channel. So make sure you have your credentials. We're going to set up a destination inside Ecamm. We're going to do a scheduled time to go live, and then we'll also do a go live instantly. All right. I'll see you in the next lesson. This was a good one because now you are putting content out there, and that's a pretty major step. So I'll see you in the next one. Lesson 10. We're getting close, folks.